What's up, Degenerate Nation? Welcome to the Big Bets on Campus podcast presented by BetMGM. This is the weekend college basketball betting preview. I'm Stuckey, and joining me, as always, are Mike Calabrese and Mike Randall. A lot to get to. We will preview the weekend, a little rapid fire. We will have our futures roundtable add to the portfolio as we do each and every Thursday night. But first, let's talk a little week that was, or you can even go back to last weekend. Key takeaways, a rant, wherever you want to go with it. Randall, I will throw it to you. What do you got? One or two things from the week that was.
The SEC is the best conference in college basketball. I do not want to hear about the Big 12. We know Kansas isn't the level that it normally is, and they do have some solid teams there. But the SEC with Tennessee, Auburn, Kentucky, those teams are legit national champion contenders. We have bashed Tennessee for years. Folks, Dalton Connect is the real deal. He's the missing link if you go back to wrestling. People remember that type of wrestler. He is the scorer that they need. Every team that has a coach that has sustained success eventually gets over the hump. Rick Barnes has been to a Final Four, but he's been highly criticized at Tennessee. Kentucky, we keep waiting for the regression. Stuckey, they showed out big time in the Texas A&M game. I got it at 2.5. I thought I was going to take it home, but we got the foul call at the end of the game, and then it goes to overtime. I love the SEC. I view conferences as how many teams can legitimately win the national title. And I'm telling you right now, the SEC has three legit at the top. I love SEC basketball. Ken Pom has them third. They're better than the Big East. I like them better than the Big 12. The SEC is back, and they are for real.
Yeah, I think you could argue that the SEC has the most teams that have legit chance of cutting down the nets. I think the Big 12 is still deeper just because the bottom half of the SEC leaves a little bit to be desired. But yeah, if you look at, how Auburn has played, Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama, the top of that conference is as strong as you're going to find anywhere in college basketball. I will talk some more about that in my future. I have a little teaser. I have something with the SEC. And Calabrese, before I throw it to you, the Big East, we need to do something about this. There was, I had a tweet that said, if Florida State makes the college football playoff, I will bet DePaul every game for the rest of the year. That's how confident I was. Thank God that Florida State did not make the college football playoff. I mean, where is the where is the bottom for DePaul? I don't even look. I don't like if I show value in DePaul, I don't care. I'm not betting them. I mean, they lost. Here are their recent losses: 84-58 to Creighton, 94-69 to Villanova, 100-62 at home to Providence. I mean, this team is dreadful, but I mean, they're outside. I think they're outside the top 300 by some advanced metric sites. That's right around where I have them. I mean, we have to come up with some sort of relegation system. Like DePaul needs to be in, at least put them in the Sun Belt. Like it just makes Big East. You got to buy. You got to buy on Tuesday night against DePaul. An absolutely miserable team. They're just losing by hey, teams in power conference league shouldn't be losing by 40-50 every game. It's ridiculous. Anyway, that's my rant. Calabrese, what do you got?
I mean, I agree, not just this season, but like every once in a while, DePaul should be good just based on geography. I understand that they don't have a lot of buy-in from, the university and resources and yada, yada, yada. Hit on 2 second or third tier kids out of the Chicagoland area once a decade. Like, what is it going to take just to go 20-11 and make the tournament and get bounced in the round of 64? That's all that Blue Demon fans are looking for. We're not asking for much from the bottom of the Big East, but I agree with you. It is insane.
They're looking to be like Northwestern, which is Northwestern now. Northwestern fans are happy. They're going to make the tournament. They're competitive. I mean, DePaul is just they're just an uncompetitive. I mean, you look at their roster; it is horrendous. But what do you got from this week?
So Randall at the top was basically talking about the power rankings of, the best conferences in America. At this point, forget about conferences. Like there's only really two teams that I feel like have separated themselves at this point in Purdue and UConn. And what that's done is it's opened up this log jam of teams in the like 10 to 25 unranked range of the AP top 25. And as someone who loves mid-major basketball, I was just hoping that somebody could start to emerge and pick up some steam. And I think we have two right now. We've talked about these teams. Dayton, I think at this point, they've shown that they've gotten over their injury in their backcourt. They're cobbling together the guard play, and it's enough around Holmes because he's playing at a superhuman level. The 20th in shooting efficiency. They rarely turn the ball over, and they don't foul teams. I love that mix where it's like if you're going to beat them, you have to really earn it. They're not just going to send you to the line. And then the second team, I know you're going to love this stuff. New Mexico. This is it. Either bandwagon or we're closing the doors and this is an express train to the Elite Eight. They're 61st in KenPom offense, 28th in defense, and 8th in tempo. And they force turnovers on nearly 20% of opponent possessions, which is 23rd nationally. I'm in love with this team. I would argue that their starting five, Dent, House, Mashburn, Nelly Jr., Joseph, and Toppin, when those five guys are on the court, I'm not sure there's many teams in the entire country that can beat them. Obviously, there's depth issues. And when you get into, postseason run and tournament runs, you're going to need to be able to rely on some rotational guys. But just those five, when they're clicking, I'm in love with this team. I think it is ridiculous right now that Bracket Matrix has them basically on the cut line and, they're kind of a bubble team. I think they can play their way up to, let's say, like a 6th or a 7th if they go ahead and win, the Mountain West. And if they do so, I would love to have just about any number on the Lobos. So I'm going to kick it to you because you've been basically the leader of this band for the entire season. But I think people are starting to learn after that Utah State, dominating win.
Yeah, dominated San Diego State, Utah State, back-to-back games. Yeah, and like the thing is that I guess with they don't have any bad losses, which is good for the tournament. They've lost to St. Mary's on the road, Colorado State on the road, and then UNLV on the road. And their analytical profile doesn't, account for the fact that most of the year so far, majority of the season, they haven't had everyone together. All of their guards playing at the same time. And yeah, the one thing, and we talked about some of their freshmen that I think are also going to get better over time. The one thing that can really derail them, because I agree, they're like the mid-major that I'm going to be circling that just has the guard play and the scoring that can make a run just from a talent perspective. The one thing that can derail them is Jalen House, who's unbelievable to watch, but he's kind of like he's their lifeblood, but he's so aggressive, which is, also the best part about it. But if he gets in foul trouble, which he can at times, then it's a one and done tournament that can really hurt them. But yeah, I agree on the talent of New Mexico. All aboard the Lobo bandwagon. One takeaway that I have for this week, I'll say, related to our futures portfolio, Texas A&M. I'm glad that I know that they lost to the corpse of Arkansas. Coleman didn't play, but he needs to play. Texas A&M, and again, they shot 6 of 30 from 3. But I'm happy with having them 14-1 to make the Final Four. They just still need another big to play with Coleman, and they're missing just a really good wing defender. But with Coleman back in the lineup, I don't think that they have a couple flaws and they can't really shoot. So I don't think they have national title ceiling. But Wade Taylor can drag them to a Final Four. Especially if you get the path breaks right. I mean, he almost single-handedly beat Arkansas on the road. He dropped 41. You saw him late against Kentucky. You saw him drop 35 against Houston. So I'm excited to watch him in the dance. So yeah, just get in, have the path break a little right, and he's the type of guard that can just drag you to 3 or 4 wins. But speaking of futures, good transition before we get to the weekend. Let's talk a little futures portfolio. So far we have Houston to win the Big 12 regular season, they were actually not the favorite when we bet them. They're now the favorite, even though they dropped 2 games. And then we have Texas A&M 14-1 to make the Final Four. Let's go to this week. Everyone brings their case to the table, and then we vote on it. Randall, I will throw it to you. My only rule is that it cannot involve DePaul.
Well, I was talking to Mike about this before we started, Stuck. I am the kiss of death. So let's recap how I've done here with the futures. First, I bring Miami, and they end up losing the next game. Now, no Poplar, that's fine. But then they lose to Louisville with the walk-on starting. Last week, I had the brilliant move of bringing UMass, who then lost 2 games. Yes, no Matt Cross against Loyola Chicago, but certainly that didn't look good. So whoever I say, Stuck, is going to end up jinxing them moving forward. So with that in mind, take it with a grain of salt. But how about Wisconsin at plus 900 to make the Final Four? I am convinced, guys, that we have now gotten to the point where we are undervaluing good chemistry, camaraderie, solid teams that don't play the most exciting style, i.e. Wisconsin, i.e. Tennessee. Wisconsin has the type of team with the development of AJ Storr, who's a phenomenal explosive player for them and has gone for 17, 14, 23 in the last 3 games, that this is the type of team that can make a run in March. Why? No one's going to pick them. First, it's the Big Ten, and to everyone, it's Purdue and essentially no one else. Then you have Wisconsin, who plays a style that does not relate to most of the country. They want the explosion. Well, they're great on offense, efficient, top 6 in KenPom. They're great on defense, top 40. They're fantastic on the defensive boards. They make their free throws, and they have a developing explosive player in Storr who can get to the basket and do some of the things that they struggle to do. Wisconsin right now is 5-1. They're coming off a loss to Penn State. So right now is the time to buy. I think they're going to destroy Indiana on Friday. Then Minnesota, Michigan State at home. All of these things, they already beat Michigan State away by 13. I'm getting them right now at plus 900 to make the Final Four. I am convinced that this could be the year for the Tennessees and the Wisconsins to make it far in the tournament because no one ever likes them to do so.
Tyler Wall also started to make his free throws, which is important, and like he looks like just more confident. There's been times in the past in recent seasons when he just and that's going to cost you in a big game. But you're right, Storr, who I didn't know how that was going to play out, but they really needed a guy like that. It just didn't seem like a fit for, I was like, wow, the St. John's kid going to Wisconsin. It's like the those are like the polar opposite programs of how they've played over the past couple of years, but that it's worked out for sure, and they need his explosiveness, and he's the type of guy that when you go through some droughts that he can carry you through those.
And Stuck, speaking of which, you want to have some fun any night Wisconsin plays, try to hit a Tyler Wall over in his points because it's always around 10.5, 11.5, and this guy finds a way to get right to that number. Last 3 games, 11, 11, and 11. So if you're into pain, bet a Tyler Wall over. Fun. Either way, it's fun.
Yeah. I mean, I remember last year he's gotten a little better, but he couldn't finish for anything. He looked like he lost his confidence. And Max Klesman is playing really well lately as well for them. Calabrese, what do you got?
I like that we're going off the board with arguably the least sexy top 25 team, because I don't think we can wait any longer. I think this number is going to hang around for maybe 4 or 5 more days. The team that's leading the nation in points, that's Big Blue Nation, 10th in shooting efficiency, Kentucky 20-1 to win the national title. I just don't think we can sit on the sideline anymore with this team. And what's interesting to me, having a 20-1 ticket, I know exactly the formula to beat Kentucky. So I think I have a feel for when I need to hedge out of the position. If they run into an elite offensive rebounding team like Houston or Arizona or UConn, they're in trouble. But I think it's worth noting they gave up 25 offensive boards to A&M, and they still took it to overtime. So you can take advantage of their clear weakness and still lose to the Wildcats, or at least find yourself in, a 1-possession game down the stretch. I like everything about the roster. I like everything about the way that this offense is dynamic. It's not dependent on one player, and I still think there's room to grow. They're not going to all of a sudden be a top 100 rebounding team, but I think there's incremental change they can make and some, team defense decisions that they can make to get a little bit better. Because if they do, I think this offense is enough to carry them at least to the Final Four. And like I said, when I'm looking at the full landscape, 20-1 just seems inflated to me, and it's available in multiple books right now. It's not just one sweet number at one shop that's hanging a stale number. Kentucky, I think this is the time to buy.
All right. Well, I'm going to make an executive decision here, and I'm going to say, Randall, your pick, we're going to put on the back burner until you show that we, a team that you pick can win a game after you pick them. But you're going to pick between, it's going to just come down to your vote between mine and Calvary's, because I have the same team, but in a different bet. So I'll make my case, and then Randall, you're going to be the one to decide what we add. So Kentucky right now, the SEC regular season champ, odds Auburn plus 180, Alabama plus 210, Tennessee plus 250, Kentucky plus 500. And then you have like A&M, Mississippi State. It's basically a 4-team race. So if you look at the SEC standings right now, and this whole also adds into Calabrese's pick, is that we know who, we really know who Tennessee is, and they're an older team. Kentucky still has a lot of upside, so like I think that come March, February, I think they're only going to continue to get better. But if you look at the SEC standings right now, in case someone's listening to this, you have Auburn and Alabama at the top at 4-0. Then Tennessee and Kentucky are 3-1. Yeah, Georgia and LSU are also 3-1, but they're not winning. Sorry to any Georgia and LSU fans. So Auburn, Alabama, a game ahead, but Auburn and Alabama played the two easiest SEC schedules so far. I mean, Auburn just played, they played the corpse of Arkansas, LSU, Vanderbilt. Alabama has played Mississippi State. That's a good win, but Missouri, South Carolina, and Vanderbilt. So, I mean, if you look at their upcoming schedule, Alabama has on the road at Tennessee, then they're home against Auburn. They still play Auburn 2 more times. They're at Kentucky, and they're only meeting. Now, Kentucky does have to go to Auburn. But just the way that the schedule breaks, and, Kentucky's played a tougher schedule so far. They played, at Florida. They played at Texas A&M. They played Mississippi State. Upcoming Kentucky schedule, Tennessee, Alabama, Auburn, they all play each other in the next week. So there's going to be just losses. There has to be. Kentucky, home against Georgia, at South Carolina, at Arkansas, home against Florida, and then they're home against Tennessee. And they actually, if you remember last year, that Tennessee defense, they're so, so disciplined and structured in what they do, and they're so good. But Kentucky, just with their pure talent and how they can create in isolation, they just match up really well with Tennessee. I think they swept them last year. It was a much worse Kentucky team. So they have that going for them as well. But I think this is the time to buy it. So this will be the last time for Kentucky to win. Yes, with their schedule coming up, I think plus 500 is the lowest that we're going to get. And we talked about this. I still don't believe in the Alabama defense, and everyone is, they're an analytical darling too. Here's who they beat since losing 3 straight. They lost to Purdue, Creighton, and Arizona, 3 really good teams. But remember, they lost at home to Clemson. They lost at a neutral Ohio State. They've won 6 in a row. They beat Eastern Kentucky, Liberty, Vanderbilt, South Carolina, Mississippi State, and Missouri. Color me not impressed. Auburn, they lost since losing to App State. They beat Indiana, UNC Asheville, USC, Alabama State, Chattanooga, Penn, Arkansas, Texas A&M, LSU, and Vandy. Where are the impressive wins? I think both teams are good, but I think that this is probably the top of the market on both. Their schedules are going to get much harder now. I think Tennessee and Kentucky, I think it's either going to be Tennessee or Kentucky. If you're getting a much better price with Kentucky, who matches up pretty well with Tennessee. So I think this is the time to buy Kentucky to win the SEC. So, and for both of our bets, I think Kentucky is the most likely team of the top of the SEC to just continue to get better, right? From the version that we see now could be even better come March, in a game at Tennessee that could decide this in the SEC regular season finale. So that's my case. Kentucky to win the SEC regular season, plus 500, and Kentucky to win the national title. Randall, where are we going? I don't have any issue with either, and why?
Yeah, they're both great picks. I'm going to go big or go home. I agree with Calabrese here. For all the reasons you said, Stuck, I don't think we're going to get a better number in Kentucky. And remember, Kentucky has done better in the postseason tournament. They got to the Elite Eight. They lost by 2 North Carolina. So as much as Calipari has struggled, this is the team that he has to make a run. The reason I'm shying away from your Stuck is, of course, I don't want to lose to Tennessee by 1 game. And the last game of the year, which is going to loom large, is Tennessee at home against Kentucky. If the SEC title's on the line, that is a heavy ask for Kentucky to go win that game. So I'm going to take the future with Calabrese to win the title. I agree with him. It's a great call, Mike. We're not getting plus 2,000 ever again. So I'm taking them here. Let's roll, baby.
All right, yeah, let's do it. I'm all on board with that. It would be great for White Bars here, Lexington in general. So, and we need a national title future. We don't have one yet. We have a Final Four, a Big 12, and now we'll add Kentucky. So futures portfolio update: Kentucky 20-1 to win the national title, Houston to win the Big 12, and Texas A&M to make the Final Four. This podcast is proudly presented by BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION when signing up to get up to $158 in bonus bets when you bet $5. For new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. And now, a quick word from our sponsor, HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your door. Are you too sad from betting at wild card weekend underdogs to leave your house? No problem. With HelloFresh, you skip trips to the grocery store, and unlike betting unders, they make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why they're America's #1 meal kit. This time of year, everyone's looking to revamp their eating habits. Look to HelloFresh's wholesome options every week, like their protein smart recipes each week. People say a lot of things, but we know 2 things are always true. First is you can't rely on the passing game in windy conditions. Second, breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and HelloFresh agrees with both of these. In fact, they're giving all subscribers free breakfast for life. That means you'll enjoy a totally free breakfast item with every single HelloFresh delivery. So go to HelloFresh.com/BBOC free and use code BBOC free for free breakfast for life. 1 breakfast item per box while subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life at HelloFresh.com/BBOC free with code BBOC free. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. All right, good stuff there. Let's get to the weekend. You can go Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We will go around the horn until each person is out of picks. I'll throw out one for Sunday to get things started. I'm gonna be looking for Tulane at home against Memphis. Memphis has been great. They've won a ton of close games. There's some shooting rush. They're shooting like 46% in conference. But that game against Wichita State was ridiculous. I think they made 23s. But Tulane does not turn it over. Very good against the press. Those are 2 keys against Memphis. And Memphis, their zone numbers are bad. You're going to see a ton of zone against Tulane with Ron Hunter's matchup zone. They run zone at one of the highest rates in the country. So I think this is a good matchup, good opportunity to buy Tulane, pending on what happens tonight. I'm assuming, unless, maybe if Memphis loses to South Florida or I was happy that Tulane for the spot lost last night to UAB, but I think this could be a time to sell Memphis and buy Tulane. Pretty good schematic matchup for the Green Wave. Calabrese, I'll throw it to you. What do you got?
I'm gonna go Friday night. Quinnipiac is going to Siena. I like Siena catching 8. At least that's the Torvik projection. The Bobcats are second in the Ken Palm luck rankings this season, but really this play has very little to do with Quinnipiac, it has everything to do with Siena. Despite an ugly 3-13 straight up record, they've been way more competitive as of late. They're 4-1 against the spread in their last 5, with an outright upset on the road against Niagara in their last game. And the whole reason is Sean Duru Gordon. This guy comes in and is averaging 26-9 on 36% shooting from 3-point range. Since he's shown up on December 19th, they're 4-2 against the closing number. He is arguably the best scorer in the entire conference. And all of a sudden you're putting him on a team that the public has still not caught up to. Odds makers still haven't, figured this out in terms of their power rankings. So I'm going to go ahead and play it. I'm hoping to get 8. I'd play it probably down to 6.5, but I think they're going to be feisty in this game. You certainly saw it in the last one against Niagara.
All right, so we got some Friday and Sunday action, which is nice. Randall, what do you got?
Yeah, we're going to start on Friday here. Indiana stinks. They have played Indiana, their road games this year. They played Michigan, won by 3. That's more about Michigan than anything else. Went to Nebraska, gave up 86 and lost by 16. Then they go to Rutgers, not a vintage Rutgers team, who, by the way, escaped with a cover last night because Gary got hurt. They went to overtime against Nebraska. 9 points they lose. Now they're facing Wisconsin, who's coming off a loss at Penn State. Indiana, Xavier Johnson isn't even starting anymore. The bigs are going against Wisconsin. They are not going to be able to push anyone around here on the road. I already told you how much I love Wisconsin. Indiana 8-10 against the spread this year. Wisconsin 10-7. It's just a terrible spot. Wisconsin is good. They're coming off a loss. They're home. Indiana with the bigs, just not competing, didn't do anything against Purdue, never made that game even close, even though it's a rivalry and it's home. I'm done with Indiana. Give me Wisconsin laying the points. It looks like it's going to be 13. I'm fine with that. I think it's a big Wisconsin win here against an inferior Indiana team.
Yeah, does Xavier Johnson make it to the end of the year on this team? Right. Is the question. Yeah, the guard play for Indiana, because it's sad because like their bigs have a lot of potential, but they just the guards. You can only do so much with your interior play. And Johnson, when healthy and right in the past, like his dribble creation and would have been helpful, but they'd still be lacking on the perimeter. So yeah, this team leaves a lot to be desired. I have a couple I'll mention for. We got some revenge. Did you have UNCW circled, Randall?
I did, sir, but feel free. Go ahead.
I'll let you mention them. I'll add on. How about Seattle against Grand Canyon? Grand Canyon's been on a roll. I think they've won like 15 straight. They're going to go to Seattle. I'm assuming now there's a caveat here. I'm assuming Grand Canyon's going to win tonight. We're recording this on Thursday night, and Seattle is going to lose. They could win, but bad matchup. Cam Tyson has to be back for them. So he was hurt. I don't know if he's going to play tonight or not. I haven't seen. If he does play, it's a really good matchup for Seattle. They swept Grand Canyon last year in the regular season. One of the games was out Grigsby, who's no longer on the team. But Cam Tyson just went nuts. Shoemaker can match up with Harrison. And Seattle, very good defense, especially in the interior. Really good interior defense. They also have Shoemaker as a really good on-ball defender who can kind of neutralize Harrison, who's the engine of that offense. And then they defensive rebound really well. And you have to do that against Grand Canyon. So really good matchup. They showed that last year. And then they played in the conference tournament, and Grand Canyon knocked them off in a really close game. So conference tournament revenge, really good matchup. Might get a good number here with a home dog, but Cam Tyson has to be back. So keep an eye on the app. If he's back tonight, I want to see how he looks. If not, it's an ankle injury. I want to wait on news to see if he's back, but I had Seattle circled for a nice little conference tournament revenge spot. Calabrese?
And just a heads up for anyone who has not watched Cam Tyson play, he has some of my favorite stat lines in all of college basketball. He had a game, I'm just looking at it now, where he attempted 14 threes and had 0 assists. He is a starting guard. He is allowed to pass it to other people on his team, but he'll put up, as Stuck said, if he's healthy, he'll put up 20, 25 shots in this game, try to will them to victory.
Yeah, like I think he dropped 32 and 27 against Grand Canyon last year, and now without Grigsby, like they don't have, once he's out, their depth and just the scoring punch from the perimeter, it's just not there. I mean, I think they lost to Rio Grande without him last game. So yeah, he's important, but yeah, he can fill it up, especially if he's on. But what do you got?
This is a shout out to one of our followers, Gambling Man Kenny Savage. He wanted
I
to
love
know
him. He's
who
on my
was going to
favorite
go ahead
followers.
and get that first win, Mississippi Valley State or Detroit Mercy. I like Detroit Mercy plus 14.5 against
It
Youngstown.
should have been Detroit. They
They
were.
should.
They
Yeah,
had
I
it.
didn't watch
They
the
had
end of
it.
that game.
they
were
lost
like
in double
up,
overtime.
but they were up like
A lot.
I saw the last I checked, they were like up 10 with 4 to go or something. And I was like, wow, Detroit's going to win the game. I think it was over the weekend, right? And I was distracted by NFL. I forget when that game was. Whatever. I was distracted by something. And then I look back and I'm like, oh my God, they're in overtime. They're definitely not. They're 100% not winning now. All right, but go ahead.
The headline is Jaden Stone is back. You got Marcus Tankersley filling in as that second, the Robin to his Batman. This is a two-man team, but it's enough. It's enough for the two of them to score 60 points on any given night between them. So basically at this point, Torvik has it, Detroit Mercy plus 14.5. Anything over 12, I'm going to go ahead and ride with the Titans against the Penguins.
Are you saying Detroit has Batman and Robin on their team? The 0-19 Titans. Yeah, they are at home, which is nice. They're still fighting for a win. I mean, they lost by 5 at Northern Kentucky. So I don't think there's any risk of like, if they were headed on the road now and that game happened at home, because like Detroit's not playing for anything other than like get a win now and then it's the conference tournament, but they're coming home now because it's like, oh my God, now we're 0-19 and we lost that game. So I don't think there's any risk of that here. But I mean, can they make a 3? I mean, they cannot shoot a lick. I want to see if they have anyone. Do they have anyone over 30%? Probably Stone.
Yeah, Stone's got to be over 30%.
33%. That's it. I mean, their shooting is abysmal. Randall at triple revenge Seahawks.
Yeah, let's do it, my friend. Last year, folks, UNC Wilmington versus Charleston. Starts the year 14-3. Wilmington does 4-0 here in the CAA. Lose 71-69 at home to Charleston. Then goes to Charleston a month later, gets their doors blown off, 93-61. Look who they see in the CAA Finals Conference Tournament, Charleston. They are winning that game stuck by 8 with about 6 minutes left to go. And then they self-destruct. Just a disappointing loss, 17 turnovers. Now they're going to be hosting Charleston. And what's interesting here, both teams play tonight. Wilmington against Elon. Please don't give me a sleepy spot because I took them. And on the other side, you're going to have Charleston playing Towson at home. Charleston should come into this game on a 10-game winning streak, a perfect 5-0 in the CAA, and then they're going to Wilmington. I am taking the Seahawks here with Takeo Siddle and this great team. Big win at Kentucky. They've struggled a little bit in a couple spots, but they're talented. They've been circling this game on the calendar. The triple loss last year on the road, giving Wilmington with the revenge against Charleston.
Yeah, I like it. Also, I think that the rebounding is going to be a concern. They're a smaller team, but I have this spot circled as well. I think that they can have some success in transition, pick and roll. Charleston forced you to work in isolation, which UNCW is more than capable of doing. And you want to talk about shooting regression in conference play right now. And by the way, I mean, if both teams win tonight, it'd be a huge game for UNC Wilmington. They'd be 3-2. Charleston would be 5-0. I mean, just a massive game for the conference standings. But in conference play, UNC Wilmington shooting 22% from 3. That's dead last in the conference. While teams are shooting 40%. That's dead last in the conference. So they have some shooting regression coming their way. I had that spot circled as well.
And the other thing, Stuck, is I think Wilmington has fixed their turnover problems. They're second best in the country in offensive turnover percentage. So I don't think they're going to fall prey to what happened last year.
Yep. Let's go way off the beaten path. Let's go to the MEAC. Since you mentioned some triple revenge. Last year, Howard made the NCAA tournament and got demolished by Kansas. But en route, they triple swept Norfolk State. And they played a very bizarre game at the end of the year. They played and they blew out Norfolk State. But then they played them in the conference tournament. They won by 1 on a late foul. And earlier in the season, they won by 2 in a game where Norfolk lost because they celebrated too early. Wild game. And then they ended up losing by 2. So they got triple swept in that game. Ultimately, including the conference championship, kept them out of the tournament. This Howard team, now they have some injuries, like let me see who hasn't played in a while. And trying to get injury updates on Howard. Woo, good luck. But Shai Odom, who's their best player, he hasn't had a great year, but super talented. Seth Towns, for anyone who knows, Seth Towns has been in the college basketball for like 12 years. He's still on the team, but Jelani Williams has been hurt. I don't know if those guys are going to play. And it's a different Norfolk State team as well. But Norfolk State, Robert Jones, they play his amoeba zone. Howard has been good against zone last year, miserable against the zone. Norfolk State wants to run, get out in transition. Howard's transition defense has been horrendous. So, both teams there's going to be a bunch of turnovers and fouls in this game, MIAC ball. But I think Norfolk State matches up well schematically. These are different teams. Bryant is no longer there for Norfolk State. It's a different roster construction. And last year, I thought Howard matched up pretty well with Norfolk State, even though they got lucky in 2 of the wins. This year, not so much. The injuries are a factor for Howard. They could be down 2 of their better players again. They haven't played since January 13th. They played a game in the middle against Morehouse. And they've also only beat, their last 3 games, they beat South Carolina State by 4, Maryland Eastern Shore by 11, and then Morehouse by 6 with their injuries. They have not been playing well, and they just do not defend at all, especially in transition where I think Norfolk State can eat. So I think you get Norfolk State's best effort here, some revenge from last year. And I think it's just a good schematic matchup. So I will be looking to back the Spartans and Robert Jones. Cabris, anything else?
Shout out Seth Towns. I think he's the only college basketball player currently still eligible that has the same body issues that dad in his late 30s like myself have. Just like walking around the house, carrying 2 kids. My back hurts, my knee hurts. I feel like he probably wakes up feeling the same way. I'm going to go ahead and close this out, going from a Detroit Mercy play to the number 1 team in the country. UConn, if I can get them at 4 or better at Nova. Clingan's back. They've been reliable on the road recently. They covered at Butler. They covered at Xavier. Villanova, meanwhile, hammered by St. John's and Marquette, a 1-point win over Xavier, an overtime win over Creighton. I feel like if either of those games had gone against them, the perception of them kind of treading water a little bit would be closer to the season being on the brink. And I still don't trust their shooting. They're 256th in team shooting percentage. And I don't think you can beat decisively or even really hang around with the UConn team shooting the way that they do. And really the best thing that Nova does is defensive rebounding. And they're going to be tested in this team by a top 10 offensive rebounding squad in UConn. And as I mentioned, Clingan being back, not his first game back, but his second. I think you'll see his minutes tick up just a little bit and be more impactful in a game like this. So I'll go ahead and take the Huskies, as I said, laying up to, we'll call it 4.
Yeah, healthy UConn, no matter what futures that we have. I doubt we're ever going to see, we had UConn last year. We're never going to see enough value to bet on UConn, but they're going to be a problem. So someone's got that defensive performance last night against Creighton was super impressive. So when they're healthy, it's not going to be easy to take out the champ for sure. Randall?
Yep, I'm going to continue fading these teams that are overly reliant on the 3-pointer. We've talked about Creighton. That was an easy cover by Connecticut last night. They just go to the basket to kick out. They have no interior game whatsoever. And if you have somebody who can match up with Kalkbrenner, they're really going to struggle. You mentioned this team earlier. Alabama is not going to Tennessee and winning on Saturday, especially with Auburn on the horizon at home on Wednesday. Tennessee is the better team. Alabama's on fraud alert for me, much like Creighton. You want to beat Eastern Kentucky, Liberty, Vanderbilt, South Carolina, Mississippi State, and Missouri, by all means, go ahead. Now you're going on the road against Tennessee, who has a player like Connect who can go for 30, a defense that's going to lock you down on the interior, great on the offensive boards. I don't believe in Bama. Nate Oates may have to push Connect into the bench in order to keep them from stopping him. So I like Tennessee. It's going to be about 4. I'm laying it. I think it's going to mimic the game we saw last night with Connecticut and Creighton, where Tennessee is comfortable the entire time and wins and covers.
Yeah, I mean, Alabama wants to get to the rim, shoot threes, and you're not going to find too many better interior defenses that can also defend the perimeter. So yeah, this one, thanks for losing all of our Alabama, our listeners in Alabama. But yeah, you saw a little bit of a lull with Tennessee after Connect was injured and he just wasn't healthy. And you saw that from his production. I mean, he's back. His last 3 games, 28, 36, and 39. And you said it, like, that's who they need, that guy who can take over and just go nuts. And it's actually pretty crazy because, like, you see these guys who are, Connect came from Northern Colorado, and he obviously, could fill it up there. But then you see them go to a power, and you never know how it's going to translate. Like, sometimes it's, when you're taking a step up in class, it's just not the same, right? It's easier. It's worked with Connect, and now he's like he's going to get like NBA looks with the way that he could score at this level. I don't think anyone could have envisioned this jump and leap to where he's a guy dropping 30, 36, 39 in back-to-back SEC games. So he looks fully back and healthy. I agree. I had Tennessee circled. Let me see what else I had out here.
Okay, stuck to that point. I can't think of a player who's transferred up and had a bigger success recently than Connect. I mean, everybody talked about Max Asmus. He was the one we were talking about coming into the season. He finally had a good game the other night, but he has struggled. But Connect has been dominant. I can't remember a player in a long time coming up and being this dominant on his new team when you transfer from a small school to a main school, Power 5 school.
Speaking of transfers in that game, by the way, I'm going to circle a live play. If Estrada gets in foul trouble for Bama, I think they could get boat raced in that game. Like, if he goes to the bench in the first 10 minutes with 2 fouls, I think I'm going to hammer an alternate, live line if I can get it, because I don't think they have any chance unless he scores 25 in this game, because their front court isn't scoring much to begin with between Nelson and Pringle. So he has to play hero ball and try to match Connect. So that's just something in terms of, like, every once in a while, I like to have those little alarms set for foul trouble for a guy who's an offensive engine.
Interesting point here, Calabrese. The school I used to work at, Cresskill, went to the state finals here in New Jersey for small schools. They ended up playing a school called Woodbury. We were up 8 with about 2 minutes left, and then a player by the name of Aaron Estrada took the game over down in Rutgers, and we lost the state finals. So I'm familiar with Aaron Estrada, that's for sure.
Yeah, he can certainly go off. By the way, yeah, I mean, Asmus has been good offensively. He shot well, lacking in perimeter defense. Texas, I mean, they lose at West Virginia and then come home and lose to UCF. First of all, Rodney Terry.
What a joke. What a clown. Like, can we all just do the rant on that? Like, you don't get to pretend that people can't, like, you do this to celebrate.
They're kids.
So people can do this to celebrate in the opposite direction. It's not, this is so soft. And it also brings out of me, this is one of my hotter takes. I don't think we should be doing handshake lines in college basketball or the pros or whatever. Any sport where you physically can't beat each other up, I think it ends up just ending badly. Like hockey, it's perfect because if you don't respect your opponent, they will literally just knock your teeth out in the next game. And football, it's like every single play you're risking injury. But basketball, it's just like all these fake tough guys and the coaches are fake tough guys. Like, enough of this crap.
Yeah, my shout out to my friend Jordan Majeski. His great stuff on college basketball. Check him out if you haven't, on Twitter at JorCubsDam. I remember reading something he was like last year. He said Texas is playing so well that they're going to end up signing. He probably doesn't even remember saying this, but I just remember random things. But he was like, Texas is playing so well right now or something along those lines, that they're going to end up signing Rodney Terry to a long-term contract and regret it in 8 months. It's certainly true right now. But Tyrese Hunter, what has happened with Tyrese? He just looks. This is a guy that he tested the waters in the NBA. Super talented kid. He had 4 points against West Virginia, 7 against UCF. He had 11 points in 50 minutes. Look, standing around. He has the keys to this offense, and he just continues to just drive the car into a lake. I don't know what's going on with him or this team. Like, their perimeter D has issues, so now they're going to play Baylor. Baylor's D has issues as well. I mean, if there's ever a get right spot, I don't know if I can put my money behind Texas right now, but it would be at home against Baylor. I'll throw out a couple more. You want to get real scary and bet a shitty team? I might look at Mercer against Samford. Samford has been absolutely on fire.
Oh, don't bring stock. I'm sorry. Don't bring up a chore. Having 17 combined 3-pointers in 2 years, and then against Western Carolina, he pumps in 34. He's 5-9. I'm sorry, you hit a nerve here. Please.
I'm not betting Samford. Relax. I'm going to be with. I'm fading Samford. So but big game. They beat Western Carolina on the road. They now have the nation's longest win streak at 16. But I mean, if you dig into it, the best win besides Western Carolina was I don't know, Belmont. So they haven't played anybody. Super fun team to watch. They, it's buckyball. They want to get up and down the court. But they get that huge win on the road. Now they come home to play Mercer, who's been bad. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you Mercer's been good. But they also have next up. I mean, this is their classic sandwich spot. So I think this is probably the peak of the market on Samford, and they could come out just a little flat, knowing they can beat Mercer. They have Furman on deck, and you might think like, Furman's a little down this year. Still a good team, but Furman swept them last year, and including in the regular season finale for the conference title. They want that game. So I think this is peak of the market and on Samford. And you also, could get them just a little emotionally flat against Mercer. And Mercer might be able to force some turnovers. And Mercer is super undersized. Like, they have no size at all, but so is Samford. So like their lack of size doesn't really hurt here. Now, Samford does press and play zone, which Mercer has been bad against both, but I just think we might get too high of a number here. And then another buy low. I mean, Kansas State, tricky spot. They've been pretty lucky in a lot of close games, but they just beat Baylor in OT. They have Houston and Iowa State on deck. Now they're hosting Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's only team winless in the Big 12. They've just been blown out in a couple straight. You'd think that they show up here. They can defend near the rim. That's what Kansas State wants to do, is just get to the rim. And Kansas State, I mean, no one can make a three against them. I think teams are shooting like 22% from three in league play. And they don't even, they underscreen. So like they welcome threes. There's one thing Oklahoma State can do. It's shoot the three. They can defend the rim and shoot the three. So that actually works in this matchup. And, conference strength of schedule disparity, Kansas State's had a pretty easy one. And Oklahoma State also doesn't foul, and they can compete on the defensive glass. That's important against Kansas State. So again, another team I'm not in love with, but I think it's a decent spot, and we might get just Kansas State a little flat, and I would assume Oklahoma State should be motivated here. Here's another one I'm curious to get your thoughts on. Clemson at Florida State. Florida State's won. I don't know. They're like near the top of the ACC. They've won 6 or 7 in a row. Clemson's been a mess. They've lost 4 or 5. But when you're going up against this Florida State team, there's very aggressive, hyper-aggressive defense. You can't turn it over. They're going to press a lot. Clemson doesn't turn it over. Clemson has graded out elite against the press. And they played teams like, good press teams, like a team like Memphis, teams that are really pressure you, UAB. And so they don't turn it over. They can handle the press. And I mean, this has to be the bottom of the market. And you want to talk about regression. Clemson shooting 29% from three in league play, dead last in the ACC. Opponents are shooting 43% from three, dead last in ACC play. They've lost 4 or 5. They should be seething after that double OT loss against Georgia Tech on Tuesday. Meanwhile, Florida State's coming off back-to-back road wins, including a big road win against Miami. I think this is probably the time to buy Clemson on the road. Randall, would you agree there?
Yeah, the only thing that worries me is that Clemson has Duke coming up after that, but I agree. Florida State is the team that you want to buy when they're cold and when you want to fade when they're hot. They have to. This is going to be a maximum spot for Clemson. It really is. So it's not going to feel great, but I agree. This is a great buy for Clemson in this spot against Florida State. You can't trust Florida State anytime, especially when they're going to be the favorite now.
Yep. And then I might look to buy Vatek. Vatek Logan said sell NC State high. NC State doesn't have the same explosive. They don't have the same playmakers on the perimeter. Burns might do some damage on the interior against Vatek, but I think we might get a decent number with Vatek. But that's all I got. Good stuff, gentlemen. Went through a bunch of weekend games. Even got some Friday and Sunday in there. Added a future to the portfolio. So thank you, as always, to Mike and Mike for joining me. Thanks to our producer, David, on the back end. Most importantly, thanks to all of you for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe, unsubscribe, subscribe, tell a friend, tell an enemy. We'll be back on Monday. Myself, Mike Calabrese, and Greg Waddell for a weekend recap and a look at Monday and Tuesday. Guys from 3-Man Weave, as always, their episodes will be out on Wednesday. BBOC Live. Stay tuned. We'll have details on that. We'll be coming up after football on Saturdays. But thanks for joining us. Leave a 5-star review. I'll do giveaways. I promise I'll do them next week. So just leave a 5-star review. Don't care what you say. Those really help us out. But thanks for tuning in. Good luck this weekend. And we will see you next week. Cheers.